Let's head to the phones, and joining me right now, it's Matt Mackowiak, GOP political strategist. Matt, good morning. How are you?
I'm doing great, Chad. Good morning.
Thanks for coming on today. Let's start off with Trump's address tomorrow night to a joint session of Congress. What are we expecting to hear? I mean, with President Trump, I don't know if there's ever a what are we expecting to hear, but what can we maybe expect to hear? And what are your expectations for tomorrow night for the president?
Yeah, I think you have to start anytime you write a speech for an elected official or someone in a major office. You start with what is your objective. It seems to me if you go back and you look at his convention speech, you look at his inaugural address, you even look at the speech he gave at CPAC, those were all speeches focused on his base. It seems to me his base is with him. So I think a State of the Union is entirely different. And if you look at what is going to ultimately decide whether President Trump was successful in his first term, it's going to be whether he has bipartisan major legislative accomplishments. So to me, that's what I think his objective needs to be, is he needs to make it easier to bring Democrats in his direction on his major issues so you can get actual accomplishments that have a real effect on average people. And so you got to get 60 votes in the Senate. You have 52 Republicans. Right now, there's not much incentive for Democrats to move in Trump's direction. I think he really needs to reach out to them on issues where they have some agreement. I think he ought to be, stop talking about the election, stop boasting, stop attacking. He really needs to get back to the issues that got him elected and start trying to bring Democrats in his direction. That's what I want to see. My guess is we will see a speech more like what we have seen in the past, like CPAC, like his inaugural address, focusing on the themes that got him there, but doing it in a way that is entirely consistent and probably doesn't really reach out to Democrats. That's my fear, is that he's not going to, accomplish a strategic objective with his State of the Union, and I think that'll be a real missed opportunity.
Visiting with Matt Mackowiak, Democrats have said that they are going to attend. I haven't not heard of any protest where they're not going to attend this speech tomorrow night, but they have said they want to pack the gallery with what looks like America, whatever that may mean. Do you expect to hear anything from Democrats? I mean, this is, again, with Donald Trump, it's always historic and it's always must-see TV. Do you think the Democrats are going to do anything outlandish, or do you think they're going to be on their best behavior and have all the focus on Trump?
That's a great question. If they have the discipline to let him speak for himself, I think that's probably in their best interest. Now, yes, they are all making a show of who they bring to the State of the Union. I'm sure we're going to see, transgender, left-handed Muslims in the gallery, and they're going to try to showcase a lot of those people, and so that's what they're going to try to do. But I think what you're getting at is, we have the kind of outbursts that we saw with the "you lie" comment or the "baby killer" comment that we've seen in recent State of the Unions. Look, the State of the Union is not about an individual member of Congress. It's about the President of the United States giving a joint address. This is a tradition that goes back, decades in our country. And so it's not about the people in the audience. It's about what the President wants to communicate to Congress. So, my hope is they will be disciplined. If they don't want to clap, they don't have to clap, obviously. And I'm sure in a lot of cases they won't. But that's why it's really up to President Trump to really try to find ways to build some bipartisan consensus around some of these issues. And I really hope he does that. I mean, we've seen him, demonstrate his ability to negotiate in the private sector and even in his early days as president on some key issues. He needs to now do that in a speech setting with discipline and focus and strategy and execution, because this is a big moment. I mean, I think he has an opportunity to recast his entire presidency with his State of the Union address. He really needs a really solid speech that makes it easier for him to pass his legislative agenda, because really his legislative agenda hasn't even really gotten on first base yet, and we're already, 5-6 weeks into the new presidency.
Do you think, and last question on this before we move on to some statewide news, do you think that we're still going to see when we always see it when the president enters a joint session of Congress, when he enters the room, everyone gets to the middle of the aisle so that way they can shake the president's hand. Do you think we're going to see as much of that with this president right now?
That's a great question. Generally that is a bipartisan or perhaps nonpartisan tradition. In fact, there are members of Congress like Sheila Jackson Lee of Houston who spend the entire day in the chamber trying to get the best seat they possibly can so they can shake the president's hand as the person walks in. That'll be interesting to see whether it's just Republicans, congratulating him. I think Republicans are going to give him a very positive response, both when he enters, but also during the speech itself. Now, of course, the procession will have the leaders in Congress on both sides of the aisle behind him.
Right. So
you'll have the top, I think, 2 at least, or maybe 3 Democrats on both sides in the House and Senate, both behind him. But you're right. That is an interesting thing to watch. And, of course, look, part of what's great about the State of the Union is the pageantry and the pictures. It's not just what's actually said and the response, but it's also the pictures. There's some great drama and great theater in the State of the Union. And having worked on Capitol Hill and having been part of 4 different State of the Union addresses, I remember it very well. This is the Super Bowl of politics, and it's a big night.
Let's take it statewide, and Congressman Beto ORourke out of El Paso. He's a Democrat, seen as maybe one of the rising stars of the Democratic Party within Texas and maybe nationally as well. It looks like he's considering running against Senator Ted Cruz. Does he have a shot in Texas?
In a word, no. And listen, I'll say this. I respect Congressman ORourke. He's a smart guy. He's substantive. I think he wants to do the right thing and is a reasonable person. But, someone who's serving their third term in Congress from El Paso, he probably has 2% statewide name identification. I doubt he has any real path to raising $20 or $30 million, which is what he would need to be credible. I'm not really sure. I mean, I guess he's betting that Trump's numbers tank and perhaps Cruz is vulnerable in some 1 in 1,000 scenario. I don't see that. I'm not sure why he's doing it. He'd have to give up a safe congressional seat to do that. If he wants to do it, fine, go ahead. But it'll be probably the last thing he does in politics if that's true, just because I think he'll lose by a 10, 12, 14-point margin, I would guess. So I don't really understand that. I mean, generally you only want to run races you think you can win. And I don't see any path to victory for him based on what we know today.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. Do you, given that he does have a reputation for being a smart guy politically, and someone with a future, possibly within Democratic politics, do you think he runs?
I've been hearing for months that he was very serious about this, that he doesn't mind giving up his congressional seat, and if he can't move up, he's ready to go do something else. So my sense is, I think he will. Now, a lot of times what happens in these kinds of situations is you make a lot of noise, you raise money, you raise your profile, and then you decide not to run. So I think there's a possibility that happens as well. But keep in mind, I mean, that the maximum individual contribution is $2,700. I mean, you have to raise $20 million. You'd have to go out and find 100,000 people that could do that. I mean, that is very, very hard to do, particularly for someone that is just not well known nationally. I mean, how many major donors does he know in Dallas or Houston or San Antonio? I'll bet you it's a very small number. And, of course, Ted Cruz has a statewide organization. He has a national fundraising base. He finished second for the Republican primary. He's solid among Republican primary voters. He's going to be in very strong shape, I think, for re-election. Whether Democrats want to believe that or accept that or not, that's just the case.
Real quick before I let you go, just thoughts on Thomas Perez being elected head of the DNC and what it means, not only for Democrats but for the Republicans as well.
Yeah, look, he was Obama's choice. He was a late recruit. It's not clear to me that he really knows what he's going to be doing. He was Labor Secretary. He was looking at running for governor of Maryland against the Republican incumbent Larry Hogan and chose not to do that. What's striking to me about this is I don't think this puts to bed the Democratic civil war that really is happening on the other side. The Bernie Sanders supporters were very angry that Perez narrowly won the chairmanship. So the DNC really has a lot of work ahead. They have a lot of reform, a lot of problems. Seemed to me like the DNC chair election was rigged, just like the primary was rigged against Bernie, and I think that's going to create a bigger chasm in the Democratic Party going forward.
Matt Mackowiak, thank you for your time today. Tell folks where they can subscribe to the newsletter and see your podcast. Yeah, thanks. We've got a national politics podcast with the Washington Times. We just surpassed 20,000 downloads. You can find it in the iTunes store or at onpolitics.com. It's called Mac on Politics. Of course, our newsletter, which is produced every morning during the week, is mustreadtexas.com. You can go there and sign up. We have 4,000 Texans that read that every day. Awesome. Matt, thank you very much. We'll visit with you next week. Take care.